Hey y'all, happy Sunday. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everything is going okay. Again, sorry for the abrupt introduction. I can't remember how to run a video clip as part of the intro. So I'm gonna have to hook up with my StreamYard guru, Dave Gatton, to get this down and get it all figured out. I've got the video made. I just can't remember how to get it lined up. But anyhow, that's beside the point. Um, yeah, hope everybody got a little bit of shop time in this weekend. Hope everything's going your way and hope everybody is doing well. Today is open Q&A and so if you have any preferably Vectric questions, feel free to throw them out there. I see we already have a couple of one is a question I don't think the person realized they asked, but it is something that I will bring up. I still don't know what next week is going to be. I'm not certain what I'm going to do for a video next week, but it will be a good one. Um, do a miniature shop update here real quick. I've got a contractor lined up. We're just waiting on the final scheduling to come in and do the insulation. Then something suddenly struck me the other day as I was out there getting prepped for this. As soon as I get the insulation done in the shop, I can go ahead and go to storage and get my table saw out of storage, which would open up a whole bunch of things that I really can't do right now with the little benchtop table saw that I've been using. So I can, after 8.5 years, get my table saw out of storage, and then things will start going a lot quicker. I can go ahead and sheathe the walls and get everything painted and start moving the equipment into the shed and get cutting. So here's hoping that happens pretty soon. As I say, I'm just waiting on the final scheduling to come in from the contractor. So let's see. We have a couple of things going on. Number one, I need to mention that Michael Mazalik will be premiering another stacked text video today at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. And that will be designing stacked text with a 3D element. There were people asking me questions about it, and I kind of put Michael on the spot and asked him during a live stream if he would do something like that. He has created that video. It premieres this afternoon. There's a link to it down in the description box of this video right now. And I hope to see you guys there this afternoon. And another thing that is linked down in the description box of this video is the link to the GoFundMe to help Dave Gatton kind of recover from his quadruple bypass surgery. He is just shy of halfway to his goal. And if you have already contributed to that GoFundMe, I'd like to thank you personally from me. Dave is my CNC guru, and I've got to give back to him. He is really a major driver in the home hobby CNC game. If it wasn't for him, I'd still be thinking about attempting to build my first CNC. So, he's a hell of a guy and could use our help. So if you can spare a few dollars, there's a link to the GoFundMe down in the description box of this video. So with that said, let's go ahead and let's get into some of your questions here. And again, I don't think this person realized he was asking a question, but he was. And that is, my buddy's suicidal at all times. Said he got his little CNC working again, so maybe his cam will work again. Just worried I plugged something into the PC and it says, oh yeah, I think I'll stop working now. The secret to that is a PC that is dedicated to doing nothing but running your CNC. Don't try to do anything else on it. Don't try to do anything else with it. It doesn't take a lot of computer to run a CNC router. I've mentioned this several times before. When I was just getting into this, I mentioned to my friends and family that I was going to be looking for an old Windows desktop PC to run the CNC. So if anybody had one kicking around in the closet or shoved underneath the bed, just taking up space, let me know. I'd be interested in buying it. By the end of that week, I had 4 given to me. Cheap little PCs are out there. And when I say cheap, I mean dirt cheap / free. What I did was I went through and I completely formatted that hard drive, put a new installation of Windows XP in it, then spent the next day and a half updating it so it's a nice clean install. And all that machine does is run my CNC. It can't go online. It can't play games. It can't play music. It can't do anything but focus on running that CNC router. And I have never had an issue with it, not one. So that would be my advice, is get a cheap PC and dedicate it to doing nothing but running that CNC router. So that would be my free advice, and free advice is worth everything you're paying for it. So let's see. We had a couple more questions down here. John Thompson asks, if I want to do a one-time stack tech project, I don't need to copy layers, just make each layer and set a toolpath for it. Yes, you certainly can do it that way. The way I presented it in the video series was under the assumption that, and it's a good assumption to make, under the assumption that once people see what you can do with a CNC, they're going to want one. So if you follow the tutorial and do that one-time thing, when your niece, nephew, cousin, sister-in-law, whoever sees that sign and says, oh, that's great, can you make me one? You don't have to do all that setup work all over again. You can just go in, change the name, change the date, re-weld the vectors, and calculate all the tool paths over and be done with it. And I say this to everybody. A CNC router is one of those, if you build it, they will come things. Because the minute people see what you can do with one, they'll come up with 100 projects that they have to have yesterday. Still, it's your shop, it's your trip. You do as you wish. That's just my recommendation. So if you're only going to do one, then you're just fine. It's just a one-time thing, then fine. You can do it exactly the way you want to do it. So let's see here. We've got a few more. John Harding says, I have a project 15 by 25 by 1 3/4 inches. I want to do a dish of 11-inch diameter, 1/2 inch deep. How do I make the board? Well, you just, this is no different than any other project. Just put your material dimensions in, set your border of your profile cutout, and then create your dish, create your vector boundary around that dish and machine to that vector boundary and set that dish to 1/2 inch deep. Unless I've missed something. And you would definitely want to, consider the position of the model within the material in your material setup when you first go over to the toolpath tab. But if there's something else that I'm not seeing here, Don, please let me know, and we'll take that into and go forward with this. So let's see here now. We have Richard Canton wants to know, number one, is there a shortcut key to close the measuring tool? I am not sure if there's a shortcut key to close it. What you can do is go into the help menu up at the top, and there is a direct link to keyboard shortcuts. And that'll open up a page that lists all of the keyboard shortcuts. And there it's broken up into sections. And I don't think there's anybody other than Becky and a few of the other developers who know all of the keyboard shortcuts. At least nobody you'd want to talk to for any length of time anyway. So there might be one, but I'm not aware of it. That doesn't mean there isn't one, just that I'm not aware of it. And let's see. Number two, I don't seem to be able to remove waste from the 3D view. Two things. If you're using tabs, it will throw up a warning that says if you double click this, it's going to delete the whole thing and you won't be able to see it. Well, I won't say delete the whole thing. It'll just remove the entire preview. It won't delete any toolpaths or anything. So if you're using tabs, that's why you can't get rid of the waste. If you aren't using tabs or you're talking about a small piece, sometimes you have to zoom way in and then get your cursor directly over that piece you want to move. Because if the piece you're trying to remove of waste is so small, sometimes the software can't tell what you're double clicking on. So it usually one of those two things. And also, I'm assuming that has to be done that has to be done in the preview window after you've previewed the toolpaths. So let's see if there are another one here. I'm scrolling down to the bottom here to see if I have any follow-ups. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Oh, hey, here we go. Perfect. Michael Mazalik says Spacebar to end the measure tool. So Spacebar will close it. Perfect. All right. Perfect. I didn't realize that. Okay. Let's see. B Danger wants to know, is there an easy way to offset construction lines? I'm going to assume you mean just a vector that is not, it's not a closed vector, just an open vector. You can offset using the offset tool, or you can create a couple of guidelines and copy that line over. But generally speaking, using the normal offset tool. And I cheat. I offset both inside and outside, then delete the one I don't need. It saves hassle. So, let's see. Steve Perdue says, I have a Next Wave 510 and started a new project. I created in VCard Pro, went to cut it. None of my profile or through cuts are going all the way through and starting above the board to be cut. Recheck your X, Y, and Z 0. He also follows up with, I've re-zeroed my Z-axis both physically and with the touch plate. Recheck dimensions, but nothing is working. Then it might be time to get a hold of Next Wave and see if there's an issue there. There may be an offset in the Next Wave controller that you're either not finding that setting or there's an issue there somewhere. I would send a email to tech support there at Next Wave and ask them about it. Again, it may just be a setting, but it sounds like there's an offset there that is not being accounted for somewhere. So let's see now. Suicidal at all times. Yeah, this PC is personal build like 1998. When I get a proper CNC, I have a laptop I will hook up for it. Why wait? I mean, if you have a second computer there or have access to a second computer, no time like the present. So let's see. Bob Frail, how do you display the length of a 2D display when using the measure function under Enter Objects? Well, let me open up a project here and I will get into Aspire and share screen. And here we go. And we do this and we do this. Okay. And I'll hide and I'll just put something out here to measure. Okay. When using the measure tool, there are several different ways you can use the measure tool. And that's right over here. I've not done a tutorial on this. Maybe I should, but basically what you've got is you're measuring between 2 points. You've got distance, angle, X distance, Y distance, various different ways you can use this measure tool. The most common would be to just go from one point to the other. So you have one corner here. Just put your cursor over that corner and click it. And then you can see the all of the readouts over there in the measure tool are changing depending upon where I go. Well, let's go over here to the center and click again. And you see the line stops. And now I've got a distance, an angle, a distance in X in this direction, a distance in Y down in this direction, and the Cartesian coordinates for my first point and then the cursor where it's going. So there are several ways of figuring out various measurements using the measure tool. Now down here, you also have span and contour properties. Select the vector and it'll tell you the length of the vector, where it starts in X and Y, and where it ends in X and Y. Then the area, the perimeter, etc., 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 and the number of spans. So it just depends on what you want to measure. Like I said, I can get into this and do a breakdown and do a better tutorial on it. But the overall gist of things is you want to measure a width in X. You just click at one point, come over to the next point and click again. And there's your length, the distance between your start point where you clicked and the end point where you clicked. And then it gives you an X distance and a Y distance. So that's the overall gist of it. So, stop sharing and come back over to you. This is a little bit clunky. This part's a little bit clunky yet. So, all right, let's see. Go back up here. Don Harding says, "No, you got it. I was just having an old timers moment." I I'm going to get a t-shirt that says that because I have them more and more frequently. Okay. Is it BT Reichel or is it B Treichel? I don't know. I'm having a problem using a texture from clip art and having it texture other 3D clip art I put it on top of. I've tried several levels and combine modes. Michael Mazalik would be your guru for that. Now, are you trying to get the texture below the clip art or texture an element within your clip art? And your combine modes, you're on the right track with combine modes, but you may have to dig a little bit deeper depending upon what you're trying to do. And in fact, well, first of all, are you using Aspire or are you using VCarve? I don't know. I don't know. Michael, do you have any input on that? What specifically are you having trouble with? Would be my first question. Let's see. When using offset, Suicidal at All Times asks, when using offset, what would make it offset opposite from what is selected, i.e. outside offset makes inside offset? Is that a direction thing? One of the deciding factors is whether or not it's a closed vector or an open vector. If it's an open vector, the offset could go in either direction. It depends on the direction of the vector, the start point. If it's a closed vector, an inside offset should offset to the inside. An outside offset, I'm confusing myself, would go to the outside. It basically depends on the start point and the direction of the vector that determines whether it's going to be inside or outside. So I hope that helps there. Let's see. Try to cruise down here. Okay, Bob Frail says, I am trying to display the length next to the rectangle on a 2D display. Oh, then you want dimensions. So let me go back over here and we will screen share again. I need to get me a screen deck, and that's all there is to it. And we'll do that, do that. You want to use dimensions, not the measure tool. So you'll select the vector, and you'll come up here under Create Vectors to Dimensions. Now you click on that, let it load up here. It may take it a couple of seconds. Yeah, I've got a lot of stuff going on this computer, so it may take a couple of seconds. Come along now. Boy, it's decided it wants to take its time. There we go. All right. Now let me, quit it. Control Z to undo that. So here you want to display the length, for example. I'll select length dimension and go to this corner, then snap to this corner, then drag the dimension up. You can see my dimension box I can put in whatever location I want. I'll just put it here in the center and then click, and it will display that dimension right there. Now, if I want to go with a vertical dimension, I'll just click right here and click over here to the center, and that's going to give me that dimension there. Let me Control Z to undo both of those, and let's go with an angle dimension, and I'll click right here and go to the center point of my rectangle, and then come down here to the bottom. Whoops. And then expand out, place the box, and that tells me that to the center to the bottom is an angle of 18 degrees. So, or 18.8 degrees. So you want to use dimensions and not the measure tool. And in fact, this is giving me an idea for a video. I think I may go ahead and do a video, maybe next week, I'm not sure, on the measure tool and the dimensions tool and how they're different and when you would use one versus the other. So that may be next week. I'm not sure. We'll get in and we'll take a look and we'll see. So I hope that helps you. So let's see. Let me get in here. We're getting a little bit of help for Btrexel from Michael. And let's see. Yeah, the dimension tool does take a while to load. Now, Mike Smith brings up a good point here. Dimension tool takes time to load because the fonts have to load, and he's absolutely right. I have currently about 1,400 fonts, and that's why it takes so long for mine to load up. It is very easy to go overboard on fonts. I'm here to tell you. They're easy to find, they're easy to download, they're easy to install, but every time you install a new font, you're going to run into issues like that because the software has to go through and figure them all out and then load them all up so that they're there for your use, because it not only loads the font title, it loads a preview of that font. So it's great to have a lot of fonts, but it slows down the work sometimes. So just know that it's a double-edged sword. So yeah, Mr. Coffee Paul, that's a lot. Yeah, 1,400 fonts. Because the thing is, it's not just fonts that I have downloaded, because I haven't downloaded that many. What it is every time you add a program or an app or a utility to your computer, if they have any fonts that are proprietary or something, it adds those fonts to the list. And every font that's installed on your computer that VCard or Aspire can read will be loaded into the software. So if you have Photoshop, there are fonts that came with Photoshop. If you have a word processor, there are fonts that came with a word processor. And every single one of those is available for use. So if you have installed a graphic imaging program, oh my gosh, pick one, Inkscape or Corel Draw or something like that, all of those fonts are added and are available for Vectric to use. So, it's one of those things. It's a double-edged sword. Let's see. Ayal Peleg, how you doing today? If you want to remove some inner area of the stock, would you use a pocketing toolpath, make the entire area into chips, or use a profile cut and risk the remaining part moving around? That is a judgment call. I have done both. It depends on how you're, number one, how you're securing your work. Number two, the size of the area that you need to remove. For instance, when I did that video years back about using CA glue and masking tape to secure projects, I was creating some trim rings for a friend who was making guitar pickups. And it was just a little trim ring that was about 1/4 of an inch wide. And the center of it needed to be machined out completely. I pocketed it out, number one, to demonstrate that the tape and CA glue would hold the piece while all that material was being pocketed out. And two, to keep me from having that little square left behind that I had to deal with. So you could do either or. It's entirely up to you. If you have a way of securing that centerpiece so it doesn't, catch the tip of the bit and go flying out, then you can certainly use a profile to cut out that area. If you don't, it's better to machine it away and make it into chips, because then your dust collection handles it. So there is no one answer. So hope that helps. So CIL also says it would be nice if Windows 11 would allow a feature, or would add a feature allowing grouping of fonts. Yeah, I think that would be very handy. So you could have a group of like sans serif fonts, and then script fonts, and then serif fonts, and then dingbats and wingdings and things like that. That would be very handy. Good idea. Y'all smart. Let's see. Edward Henry says, I was hoping to have one desktop or laptop to control both my CNC, two in the future, and my future laser engraver. Will this be safe, or will I need to find two computers? It depends on what you're running, Edward. If the laser is on your CNC router, you can probably use the same PC. I don't know what control software you're using. I use Mach 3. So I have one computer hooked up to the CNC router, and I have one profile in Mach 3 that I use for flat work, and then another profile that's dedicated for the rotary axis. If I added a laser, I would add another profile that used that laser along with the CNC. So one computer would control all three. If you're talking about physically separate machines, you might want to dedicate a PC to each separate machine. That way you set it up once and you're finished. You don't have to worry about it. So that's the way I would do it anyway. Let's see. Suicidal at all times. Is there a way to have the GCode put the drawing size and material size in the preface like it has tools shown at the beginning of the GCode? I thought it did. I thought it did list that. Then again, I don't know which post processor you're using and what GCode you're using. But also know, let me bring up Aspire again, then I will screen share again. A lot of people don't know about this. It's not really something I've put into any videos, but if we come up here and go to, is it toolpaths? I think it's toolpaths. Yes. Click on toolpaths, create job sheet. If you create a job sheet for the project, it will create an HTML file. Now, I'm not going to save this. I'm not going to do it. But it will create an HTML file that you can bring up on your computer, or that you can print, that lists all of that information. I don't have any job sheets handy, I don't think. But it lists all of that information. It lists the size of the material, the bits you used, the number of tool paths, the names of the tool paths, the estimated running time, all of that information. And job sheets, I use them. They're very good. They really are helpful. So, but I thought the GCode did put the material size at the beginning of the GCode. I'm going to have to look at that. Let's see. Speaking of fonts, let's see. David Pingle. Speaking of fonts, if I install Vectric on a different computer, how do you move all the fonts to the new computer? Very simply, you search for the fonts folder on your computer, copy that folder, take it to the new computer, and then copy that, select all of those files, right click, install, and it'll go through and install all those fonts. Fonts not only have to be downloaded and added to the computer, they have to be installed into the registry. So that's what I had to do when I got another computer in the other room. Was just find and you can do a search down in your taskbar, look for the fonts folder, copy it onto a thumb drive or flash drive, and then put that flash drive in the other computer, copy that folder onto your desktop, right click, install. There you go. So let's be danger. Can you copy a vector or vectors from one file to a new project? Yes, you can. And that is, you go into the file menu, import vectors, navigate over to the other old project with the vectors you want to copy, and it'll import all the vectors from that project into the file that you're currently working on. It will not, however, import any toolpaths, just the vectors. Now, if you only want a couple, open the file that has the vectors, open a new session of VCarve, Aspire, whatever, select the vectors in the project that has those vectors, select those vectors, right click, copy, go over to the new project, right click, paste. There you go. Let's see. Todd HCNC, I have a question. Do you VCarve first, then use a clearing bit second, or clear first, then VBit second? I VCarve first, then use the clearing bit second. That's just my personal preference. I find that especially in leaving raised text behind or leaving thin areas, that V-carving that perimeter first leads to a lot less chip out and a lot less tear out. So I always V-carve with the V-bit first, then go back and do the clearance toolpath. Just my personal preference. Your mileage may vary, but that's just me. Let's see. M. Cook has a question here. Can you put VCard Pro on 2 computers? Your license allows you to put it on 3. So yes, you can put it on 2. When I'm in the shop and want to make a change, I can make 3. Okay. Yeah, you can do that. Your license will allow you to install it on up to 3 computers. So you're good there. So, Mr. Coffee Paul, when are we gonna see you up on a machine? As soon as I get it moved into the new shop. I mean, that's the best I can say. Or if you are going to the Vectric user group meeting in San Diego, you'll see me on the machine during my presentation there. So, but yes, other than that, soon. Holy cow, be danger. Thank you very much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. I've had some donations through the links down in the description below. You guys are awesome as usual. And I really appreciate you more than you guys will ever know. Thank you very much for your super chats and your donations. So, let's see. And let me catch up here. Get a little bit of help going on post processors and what have you. Yeah, Michael Mazalik has an excellent point. Be very, very careful when if you change, edit, or do anything at all with your post processor. In fact, your best bet would be to copy it into another folder, then play with the copy. Don't mess with the original. I mean, that's something that I don't even get into. The post processors I use are perfect. I don't mess with anything. So, excellent point, because you can really, really mess up a post processor and then just have an absolute nightmare. So, let's see here. What do you want? Is it normal to have to use the vector validation when using serif fonts? Seems every time I get 2 or 3 issues that have to be resolved. It's very common. And the reason for that is fonts were, up till very recently, never designed to be used in a CAD/CAM software. They were designed to be printed on a page where everything is filled in with ink or laser toner. So little openings and gaps and little crossovers, intersections didn't matter. Well, for our purposes, they do. So that is to be expected. That, yes, and it's not necessarily just on serif fonts. All fonts are susceptible to this. It's just part of the part of using something that was never designed for V carving or carving in any way, in using it for carving. So, but yes, it is very much normal. Let's see here. Looking for more questions. And suicidal at all times, always have backups. Yes. Backup early, backup often. Save early, save often. I mean, that one time you think you can go back and download it and to replace a post processor that you messed up, or a file, an exe file, or a database file or something like that, or a DLL, the one time you think you can just go download it and get it back is the time you're going to find out that that file doesn't exist anymore, and you just messed up the only copy you had. I always, if I'm going to play with anything like that, make a copy, put it in another folder, and play with that copy. Because, yeah. IL Peleg says, did plotters not preceding jet and laser printers? Yes, but the fonts that came with computers, most of them were not designed to be used with plotters. So it's just, and even then, a plotter it doesn't really care so much about intersections because it's not removing material. It'll either be cutting along the material, or in the case like a vinyl plotter, if you're talking about a pen type plotter, it doesn't matter. It doesn't care. So, Eric Girth says, if you modify your post processor, run the GCode in an NC viewer software that's available, and it'll show you exactly what it'll do. Good advice. But still, I would make a copy of that post processor and play with the copy. So, let's see. When Only Chevy's wants to know, when drawing vectors over a bitmap image, how do you go to edit nodes without the bitmap going dim? The bitmap is going to go dim, but you can get in and turn up the transparency or turn up the intensity. I'm got the wrong word there. Well, anyway, you can turn it up so that it doesn't go as dim. Opacity, that's what I'm trying to think of. You can adjust that. Let me get in, and I'll have to. Well, I don't need to load a bitmap. I'll just do it without actually loading a bitmap. And once again, take the 4-step method to share my screen. Then get back into Aspire real quick. And when you trace the bitmap, there it is right there, bitmap fading. Okay. Now, if you're talking about while you're node editing, I believe, let's see, node edit. Let's go into node edit mode. I think I have to have a bitmap. Yeah, I think I have to have a bitmap installed to do that, or imported rather. Yeah, I do. But there is a way to, and I believe that's under object properties. What you do is you would select the bitmap, then right click and go into object properties, and then increase the opacity of the bitmap. But it is possible to do that. So hope that helped. Yes, there it is right there. Michael Mazalik said right click on the image and adjust the property contrast. Exactly. That goes into the properties, and it's the contrast. Thank you. I don't know. I get confused with the various different programs that I use. It's transparency, it's intensity, it's opacity, and it's contrast. So, okay, let's see. And I think this will probably be the last question we have here. James Farrell says, I have a Bob CNC machine. I'm having trouble processing the VCard program. It's pretty long, and sometimes I get frustrated with it, to be honest. Okay. I think what your best bet would be to, if you're on Facebook, and even if you're not, get on Facebook and go to the Bob CNC official support community there on Facebook. They are the experts that know your machine the best, and ask your questions there. They have a pretty good crew over there. They are very knowledgeable, and they would be the people to ask. They are there to help. They are the pros from Dober. And if you ask your question over there, they can help you out. You'll need to find out the post processor to use with your Bob CNC. And I am not familiar with the Arduino or any of that other. So, I use Mach 3 and that's it. I've never used the Gerbil or any of those other controller. So that's the best I can do, basically, is get on that Bob CNC support community and ask your question over there. So I hope that helps you out. And just, I know you're getting frustrated, but by all means, don't give up. Okay. This is not a race. You will learn it. If I can do this, you certainly can. Okay. 7 years ago, I'd never been in the same building with a CNC router. Now I've built 3. You can do this, but I would certainly get into the Bob CNC support community over on Facebook and get specialized attention. They can help you out. So, Last one here. Do you have experience with DNC for you? Or I imagine you mean CNC for you. No, I do not. I have heard about them, but that's all. Just heard about them. So, one last thing before we go ahead and end this, and that is some of you who know and follow me over on Facebook know that I have backed away from Facebook quite a bit. And this is basically the elephant in the room that I haven't talked about yet. I have backed away from it quite a bit. I'm having an argument with them over a stupid animated file. And basically, the comeuppance of this is I have all but left Facebook as I'm tired of them. And it's nobody on Facebook has upset me or made me mad or anything like that. It's Facebook itself. So as a result, I've taken most of my social media off platform, gone to another, I'm using Twitter and MeWe and Instagram. But the only thing I'm putting on Facebook now is links to live Q&A sessions, links to my videos on Sunday, and links to the Trampled Underfoot podcast that I co-host with my partner Eloy Escojedo once a week. I will be posting links to that live recording and links to the finished audio version of the podcast after the fact. So that's why you're not seeing me a lot on Facebook. I'm just not using it. I have left all of the groups I was in. I used to admin a couple of groups. I'm no longer doing that. And magically, I have a lot more time on my hands and I'm more able to get some projects around the house done. Case in point, I'll be leaving here, going straight outside to do some more landscape work. Excuse me. And then meet up with you rather at 2:00 Pacific, 5:00 Eastern for Michael Mazalik's premiere on stacked text with 3D elements. The link to that is down in the description box below. So I will see you there. So from now on, wow, I need to wake up. So for now, let's just say have a great day. Hope you can get back out and make a few more chips. And y'all take care. Have a good one, y'all. Take care.